Hey, Gazelle. Hey. Hi. How are you? Enjoy the reading.
Yeah, just a second. Everyone, hello. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. Good evening, everybody. Hello, friends. Could I ask you to find a seat, please? We're about to begin this very wonderful reading that we have planned for tonight. So, thank you. Hello. Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to this Pamenar Press reading. My name is Tim Atkins. Tim.
I'm going to put this on you while you speak to hear you.
Okay. Tim unfortunately couldn't be with us. He's not well, so Ghazal asked the next most charming and handsome person that she could think of, but Jeff Hilson also couldn't do it, so here I am. It's great to see so many familiar and unfamiliar faces for this reading. We have 3 terrific readings and a recording of a 4th. Fran wasn't able to be with us tonight because of the train strikes. Please feel free to make a donation to cover some of the costs of the reading to support this terrific series. There's also a dinner reservation upstairs for 15 people until 9 o'clock. If you want to be part of that 15, please speak to Minay, who's here behind the bookstall. And there's also lots of really fantastic books, so do take a look at some of those at some point during the evening. Was there anything else I was supposed to announce? The bar is open for you to very quietly help yourself to drinks over the course of the evening. We're going to have 3 readings, about 20 minutes each without a break, and that will give us lots of time to talk to each other afterwards. So our first reader is Peter Manson. Peter lives in Glasgow. His books include Poems of Frank Rupture from Sancho Panza Press, Adjunct and Undigest, and For the Good of Liars, which are both from Bark Press, and Between Cup and Lip from Miami University Press in Ohio. Miami also published his book of translations, Stefan Mallarmé, The Poems in Verse. Most recently, he and the poet Mendoza have collaborated on Windsuckers and Onsetters, Sans Knots for Griffiths, which is published by Materials. Peter also does an outstanding rendition of Orange Claw Hammer by Captain Beefheart. Please welcome Peter Manson. Are you going to?
Okay. Hi, folks. How you doing? I'm going to bring the microphone down very slightly, I think. Hi there. I'm going to read a sequence from a sequence called Self-Avoiding Space-Filling Curve. The poems are all in kind of a more or less fixed form. They're 13-line poems and 13 syllables per line. And I was aiming to write 13 of them, but I wrote 28. I promise I won't read all of them. Intercranial hypertension. You don't go away, rat of sunshine emboldened days. In my nights I rhyme you off, ever more than the last, grateful guilt at your present absence. The darkness drowns with unheard radio goodbyes for company, undo violent work, chosen yell, oh streaky beacon, merging again at dawn into soft play pipes on words. Sanitized, aimless, self-tickling in defeat of sense, tacitly backed the police in their suicide vests. To win or place, take from each in their own hour of need. It could be you, backlit doorway of my withdrawal, awarded a screaming arsehole pension after death. Defective toy roadrunner anvil inspector, chased by cinematographers off a visual cliff. Maintain once. In my time, at full term, as a primate ghost, I lay in impossible earth, which I made with my body. In that decade, when disastrous men begin to die, noticeably at first, leaving a passable corpse, then blending into the ambient unremembered, who reign into our livestock, poison the holy well. I shared my thoughts in passing and could not retract them. Really, guys, I'm fine, but will the mourning never stop? Oh, it just did, like a passion blocked by alcohol, unfriended by medication, trolled by mindfulness, a compost of wind and fear in an active waistband, fucking itself in salute to the family, drunk on withholding the gift of someone else's feces. Demodex folliculorum. As death is my only anus, I am torn from life, born of an ingrown follicle as the atoms leave, as the leaves at umbrage sublime, mistaking usage for rosacea, read aerospace for borborygmus, arboretums of smut thrown back in the red mange face, hugger of locust flower poop decks lowered by wolves, a wet market with no zoonotic potential, strictly commensal flora heard on the brink of sleep. A fat man developed a fungal infection and became a lichen, tumbling with dry tumbleweed. The dump was a mother. She provided everything to that humble and freely transmitted widow's mite, obligate parasite of an endangered species. More fun with is. My most extreme self-consciousness has a leg in it and is structured like a second language, understood in parts when spoken slowly, and more fully in print. O companionable absence of a second leg, from my inane flap, now I am a kind of trousers. Wearing at all times an N95 stocking mask, I rob the past, confusing it and the leg with me. Above my head is much that would interest my leg. My brow is still red from the kiss of the Queen Mother. In my new I don't do this, I don't do that poems. Shaking a lost leader thigh gap to the sound of one high heel, treading softly on my human ball. My cock is in my pocket, it is poems by Iggy Pop. Willie's Lake Wake. I bought a soap dish that smells of condom lubricant, with a hey the cuddy or the kai, etc. And in that soap dish there was literally nothing. Figs to the barn owl wrongly identified as such. I sold a side plate with no inherent qualities. The putative barn owl has carried my snood awa. The buyer claimed it was blue and eBay sanctioned me. I inherited a trivet and left it to you. Oh, bury my body in Sussex, my by goshawk, to bequeath unheated in its original box. Cremate my soul in red Chernobyl, mither, as I sense you already did, though what is not clear is the will to clarity contested this plague year. A Protestant with no mitochondria has been discovered living in the intestines of a chinchilla. In the unlikely event of landing in a glass of water outside Stevenage, you will not have died so early and often as in our impatient dreams. To be alone without you in the Vantablack stage of grief is the true beginning of marketable. My pea green uninterruptible selling point, blank as a magic tablet set up in a molehill crest to command the halftime chiasmus of our pronouns. The socialized distance is going in for a hug. You pull out of the hug too soon, but it's still going. Every pressure point a prayer, a station of the hug, bent on convincing itself you're real, afraid it won't get to hug you again, and eventually it can't. Immortal, invisible, God's only wise, that's WIGHS. Like the one pair of underpants owned by Almighty God, which will last forever and which cannot be seen, the poetry listener's performative guffaw is a thing you almost miss, this line left incomplete. Like rust, God never sleeps, which was fine for the first week. On the seventh day, the hallucinations started. Psychosis ripped. Catatonic since the Cambrian. Non-fatal familial insomnia of the God who is always and only there. And nothing sees you except Google, your dead dad, the DWP, the Police Scotland helicopter at your window, the eyeballs drawn on the eyelids of the nodding God, dogs and shit, Schrodinger's cat. You must change your Y-fronts. Alice Cober in Aidan Coben. Bats eat the unicafer and are disappointed in the scant kernel of blur, then go for another. Inured to disappointing nuts, I am featureless, without that faintest glimmer of a personal life you impute to even the bats. Go to sleep, mine zone. You lost your hot years to COVID and masturbation again, and your mother is a Pomeranian. So many new kind friends whose names you will never learn take you to places you retain no memory of, that you in your passive pomp of inwardness might strive to feel abandoned when you are the abandoner of my impatient eyes that twinkle not unkindly. Peter, oh, is the room and the elephant for me. Lines composed a few feet below Tintern Abbey. I saw a ship in sight, specific immolation of young Iams, bound by a code of honour, revoked to save my sorry gammon. Pig thinks of a colour. The sty turns blue in the birth canal as the party becomes uninhabitable. O deaths in Scotland. My named and memorable acts of brutality, forgotten by me alone as the head engages. The dust here is 9/10 shit in the Abbey tunnel. Old parts alight with a phosphorescent jaw for war, as if we can't have both, these wipers inside a pig, things heard on the brink of the sleep of reason, inbred to outsource self-awareness to the unknowing cloud of discontinuous starlings under all bright stars. The Merry Wido. There was a saltfish that absorbed the Wolf Clyde water, preempting Glasgow, which would have emptied anyway. The wind blows Mary a contrary identity. Her mother was a professional hog dandler and preferred to be known as the enemy of lies. Ah, will you lay me down and love me for no reason? Through my uncoordinated irritable hole, or androgynous peripheral attach system, or all of the above and not for want of trying. Poetry will be mad eyeball at the docks and fuck. Be sure to dig it out while it still looks like vomit. Troll cats looked like balls of yarn in autotelic play, or the testicles in an old sparrow in April. Pro rata thank you bonus. I am the world's Photalian boy, the one who searches to read personal protective equipment at Kiel. Snooze Tom for 30 days, not that Tom, other Tom, Tom. Is there a damper on your floor, Tom, star-nosed Ringo? 8 of the molehills contained probable human bone. Not one of us lives in my Cathystaff bathyscaphe, my beautiful Baloo. The octagonal dead houses of Ontario, by contrast, are full till the ground thaws out in springtime. The Lord shat on the mooses and on the maglev too. What Ted Kaczynski wrote about Diaghilev is true of the angry inch, which makes no flan an aisle. Mistake not cliff for Hank Marvin and treacherous bramble. An Englishman's tongue is his kazoo. Complex Simon met a foreman sunning his despair. I told them when I think I can't go on, I go on. Supercritical, space-filling, self-avoiding walks against the encroachment of old Aberdeen sub-wobs upon the turf of my new and selected poems, good, occasionally poor later. Rolling homeward to become the father in death of my own parents. I had cut off like a weaver my examined life of imaginary shit with real sweet corn in it, and had no memory of my life as a jockey, my cyanotic dog licking this of a pizzle, the harmlessness of the Laurel and Hardy theme tune, or the Jimmy Shand monument in Auchtermuchty. A report song in a dream. Importers of rebuilt typewriters. My unbuilt son died and is now a property of his family, who will judge God by your dead foraminifera, not mine, in the book of unspotted albumin prints. A geometric elevation of the Lord's loft in a barn that's been blown onto the line near Polmont is the thump of fat that will never abolish chance, or inframints crevice twixt 2 after-dinner mints, in advance of the Warrington Minge declaration of a Latin small letter Y with diarrhea, whose perfume on the remote faded within a year. Be careful with that white wax, eugenol putty tops on craters half in shadow at the Terminator. Rhomboidal dirge. Old dirty jazz band, I met you first as a symbol for days ascent into deep-fried negative headspace. As more piss falls through this into the night and meaning takes angry flight to shut the door on the gravest ones who hold it still as eyes in death's ironic orbit. Crowded as that would be, now we've found the will to live. Speak for your plurable self, I've never felt damper. Here in the Scottish Government Resilience Room, Conservative surgery dervishes in the mood to salute the backstop boys with an earnest hello, promote me to the Saudi Arabia of wind. Faintly dismissive of the work, but unsatisfied by all but the most hyperbolical praise of it. The wild Chelonian boy. Now fades the last long streak of piss from the trouser leg, inside which part of me died, and it wasn't a leg. To stand on ceremony, to jump about on love will tear us apart from viewers in Scotland, forlorn. The very word is like the word foghorn, seen through fog, in the valley of the Cow in Clent under Hawthorne, where butter mountains grease the timber lake and palm trees smack up your rampant mullet cut with a saltire chief. Oh, my Sibylline cowboy vague booker, tell me why the long doom scroll, like a simile planted firmly on the back of the face I will never countenance. A rite of the passage migrant grave, which though it has been spring too long, did not resuscitate Gongula. My thermal runaway. That one time the late convener of the trades of air died to dislodge the late deacon of the square men, one of the elect who suffered martyrdom in air at number 17 Stationary Hospital, prescribed Ovaltine and Eucodal by his GP, a dog for which he had not then a license in force, and 6 sessions of CBT at the Cat Cafe. That imperceptible contest drags on to this day, underground in air, where the soundless benign dead play. Some of my best friends are never-ending scrolls of death, on a miscut headstone, corrected in lime putty, washed over with beige or cream, the letters painted red, eroded now to the chaos of all intentions. Helium flash. Barely a fortnight dead, I forgive myself the pain of debt to the earlier poets of this sequence. My soul I discourage the hand of God from touching. My body I recommend to earth, but no pressure. Origin myth, and I hate it still. Man na mildust ond wirt iornost, the mildest of men and most geekish about his plants. An extorted offering. Ah, Mallarmé, when you think of him delivering a carnivorous plant to Beatrix Whistler in 18, when for 5 francs you could buy a larynx iodized wallflowers, you know how fictional the century is. It is in truth the tuber of a kind of melon, the Orphic obfuscation of the earthen warhead that circles above me in a time-like loop of hate, and below me like an emu lifted by the wind. I survived alone on pea wet and the oink of pigs. The feelings I had watching them hug pus still linger. To distract me, you ask what my drag name is. It is spontaneous vaginal delivery Manson. Malay's trap. The place is not poisoned by anything that happened there, not the fading grease on the graven floorboard, where you lost the ability to have a body and found the ability to be one with nurture, weighed down by cast iron cobbler's feet and possessions. He recognized that the pancake controlled the gender and that this was a compliment intended for him. Encouraged by dysentery, he single-mindedly improved the sheep of his county to a marked degree, without benefit of external examiners. Bypassing the catheter, now that my bladder's gone, I must lie down in a puddle of my own choosing. Unspectacled, testicled, periwigged, wingless soul. Thank you.
So much, Peter. Habib Tengour is a poet and anthropologist who was born in Mostaganem in Algeria. He has published about 20 books of poetry, prose, drama, and essays. His latest books include The Tatar of the Kremlin from Édition Fille in 2018, Odysséen, which is in a French and Italian bilingual edition from Torino in 2019, Ta Voix Vie, Nous Vivons, which is from Édition Epic in Algiers in 2020, and The Sandal of Empedocles from Édition Non-Lieu, 2021. He is the editor of the Poems of the World series from Epic Editions in Algiers. And in 2016, he was awarded the European Dante Poetry Prize. And in October of this year, he will be awarded the Benjamin Fondin Prize. Please welcome Habib Tengour.
No crime for me. I am not so popular, I think, as Peter. So I am going to read in French, and Cole, who translated poetry, will read a translation. So the first, it's a long poem, but about Circe, in Odysseus. Le sourire de Circe. Circe l'observe. Voilà quelqu'un qui lui donnera du fil à retordre. Peut-être blessera-t-il son amour-propre. L'allure trompe rarement. Elle voit, il ne mange pas, indifférent, ou peut-être replié, pas l'aspect ascète, fier, du nez. Celui-là se distingue de ses compagnons. Ça saute aux yeux, pas comparable. Ceux-là se vautrent, des porcs, valent pas un clou. Toi, mon chéri, tu ne perds rien pour attendre. Elle murmure. Lui déplace les plats, ne touche à rien. La pâte de canard l'intrigue et le rutabaga. Que sait-il des sortilèges que j'administre aux naufragés? Il ignore. Il connaît les manières de table. Parfait. L'amener à goûter au ragoût de mouton. Une bouchée pour Bibi, petite lipée, Mimi, minuscule, ou une gorgée de ce vin résiné. Hume le bouquet. Ça fait tourner la cervelle, non? Non. Croquer une pomme. Tu dois avoir faim. Il se doute de quelque chose. L'habile homme. Je vais être dans la difficulté, mon art pris en défaut. première fois, une débutante perplexe devant son maquillage. Il ne se passe rien d'extraordinaire. Nulle illusion en guise de marchepied. Abattement à poursuivre une routine. Se raccrocher, ce raisonnement me désespère. Allons, Routette, va rejoindre tes compagnons. Elle se garde bien de prononcer la formule. Attraction du gouffre. Rien ne la désole autant que l'oscillation du regard. Vieille sorcière, comme ça qu'on dit. On le dit à tout bout de champ. Des bouseux. Ils disent, et ça ragote, à sortir de l'ornière. Que je me préoccupe, moi, de tous ces racontards. L'âge, je n'en ai pas. Divine, sans le sortilège. L'engrenage, c'est quand on met le pouce. Faut quand même plonger dans le purin pour se rendre compte de la cochonnerie. C'est toujours moi qu'on accuse à cause des bûchettes, la fessée, le bonnet d'âne, la règle sur le pupitre travaille le psychisme, la paume, le doigt ou le bout des ongles. Qu'est-ce que j'y peux, moi, contre l'égarement des hommes? Ils croient en pourceau leur vie meilleure. Toi, tu te prévaux d'une dignité que je demande à voir. Mange, ma cuisinière est susceptible. Tu n'as pas débarqué dans mon île pour faire abstinence. Le jeûne convient aux vétérans. Tes compagnons ne se privent pas. Des porcs, pas besoin de coups de baguette pour être ce qu'ils sont. Mange, honore ma cuisine, goûte. Et d'ailleurs, je n'empoisonne pas mes hôtes si tel est ton souci. Mes raviers, ils sont beaux, contiennent des choses bonnes. Peut-être as-tu la tête farcie des récits de marins. Justement, c'est la faim et les privations quand se déchaîne le Norrois. Tranquillise-toi. La nuit n'est pas plus obscure que le fond de la vague. Tu as accosté sain et sauf. Que fait-il? Cette racine qu'il sert, malheur, cherche-t-il à me faire perdre contenance? Il me fixe avec insistance. Il est prévenu et dans l'expectative. Pas un geste non plus, comme s'il ignore la langue du visible. Il boude ma recette d'escargot. Le plaisir, Coco, ma phéronome, troublera-t-elle son flegme? Au tect, non, tu déjoues les formules, toi comme personne. Sur le lit, surélevé, elle le masse. C'est bon. Lui raconte pour ne pas somnoler. Les armes d'Achille, tous les voulaient. Je me suis battu, faire valoir mes droits, et j'ai gagné. Que de discorde depuis lors. J'ai hésité à les détruire, je les ai cachés. Les dieux ont comploté ma perte. Un dieu bourru, jaloux de mon astuce. Mes compagnons n'ont pas toujours été gloutons. Les aventures qui nous unissent ne relèvent pas de simples équipés où chacun tire la couverture. S'ils n'avaient tenu qu'à moi, cette guerre, nous ne l'aurions jamais menée. Pour une fois, mes tours n'ont servi à rien. Mettre en doute ma virilité. Je n'ai pas laissé dire, et même surenchéri. La preuve par le bronze. L'argument était réfutable, mais peu subtil. Pourquoi ne pas évoquer la peur, l'écœurement quand le sang coagule au soleil? Le sable brûle la peau et dans le noir de la nuit, les doigts gèlent. La guerre dure encore au moment où elle s'achève. Ce qui résonne dans le crâne n'est pas très beau. Traverser la frontière ne donne aucun avaloir. La douleur se cristallise en amertume. Il faut tout raser pour avoir la paix. Circé sourit. On verra ça au petit-déj. Il ne partira pas de sitôt. Le temps du récit.
Circe's smile. Circe sees him. Ooh, who's that? Looks like he just might make things difficult. Could end up bruising my self-esteem. Appearances are rarely deceiving. First note, he won't eat. Seems indifferent or even withdrawn, and not in an ascetic way. Proud, the nose shows it. Sets him apart from his comrades. No doubt about it. No comparison. The others wallow, pigs, not worth a pin. While you, little sweetie, your resolve draws me in. She murmurs. He shuffles, the plates, touches nothing. Maybe the duck's feet'll tempt him. Maybe the rutabaga. What does he know of the spells I cast on shipwrecked sailors? Nothing. What he knows is table manners. Okay, can we tempt him with a little bit of lamb stew? Just a little nibble? Just a tiny taste? Minuscule, or simply a sip of this wine. Take a whiff of that bouquet. It turns the head, no? No. Crunch into an apple. You have simply got to be hungry. But he suspects something. Crafty man. This'll lead to no end of trouble. My art is faltering. First time, like a debutante stumped in front of her makeup. But all seems utterly normal. No illusion to give me a leg up. Defeated by the usual routine. Give it up, this trying to think it out. It's driving me nuts. Off to your sty, you swine, and wallow with your friends. But she's careful not to say that out loud. Pulled as she is toward the abyss, nothing makes her as sad as when he looks away. You old witch, that's what they call you, all of them, all the time, those assholes. They say it and it needles you. Oof, just get over it. But I let it get to me, all their talk behind my back. Age, I won't have it. Whereas magic, I've got that, no spells needed. But it all falls apart once you start to care. And yet you have to drive into the whole hell of it to even begin to understand the pig-headedness. They're always saying my arithmetic's wrong. A kick in the butt, the dunce's cap, arbitrary rule gives the psyche a workout. A rap on the knuckles, a rod across the palm, across the very ends of the fingers. What on earth can I do, me, in the face of the debauchery of men? In fact, they find their lives as swines rather better. In you boast of dignity that I've yet to see. Eat, I've got a touchy cook. You didn't land on my island to go on a diet. Fasting was fine for the ancients, but your comrades aren't holding back. Those pigs, no need for a touch of my wand to make them eat. Honor my cuisine, taste, and besides, I don't poison my guests, if that's what you're worried about. My serving dishes, gorgeous pieces, are heaped with everything delicious. Maybe it's just that your head is already too stuffed with sailor suspicions. Ah, yes, it's hunger and deprivation when the west wind arrives. Worry not, night is no darker than the depths of a wave. You've landed safe and sane. What on earth is he doing? What's that root he's grabbing? Egads, is he trying to make me lose my cool? He's staring at me fixedly. He landed here with a fixed idea. His mind was already made up. And he doesn't even make the slightest gesture, as if he's wholly unaware of the language of visibility. Shows no interest in my snail recipe. Listen up, my love. Would that my pheromones could disturb his composure. Off to your sty. No, you wrecker of hexes, you nobody. On the bed, raised, she massages him. Ah, that's great. Keeps on talking to keep from falling asleep. Achilles' weapons, everyone wanted them. I fought to retain my rights, and I won. And what a lot of trouble ever since. I didn't want to destroy them, so I hid them. The gods plotted my ruin, a nasty god, jealous of my cunning. My comrades haven't always been such gluttons. What has bonded us in brotherhood is far beyond the petty exploits in which everyone is out for himself. And if it had been up to me, we'd never have been dragged into this war in the first place. For once, all my ruses were useless, cast doubt on my virility, but I soon took care of that, and then some. Tested by the sword, the argument is irrefutable, though hardly subtle. Why not play on fear? The sense of revulsion as blood coagulates in the sun, as sand burns the skin, and in the dark of night, fingers freeze. The war goes on even beyond its end. What rings in the head doesn't look so good. Crossing over the border simply isn't worth it. Grief crystallizes as bitterness. We must destroy it all if we're to have peace. Circe smiles. We'll talk about it over breakfast. He won't be leaving all that soon, time having been extended into legend.
She's going to read next. Thank you so much, Habib, for that wonderful reading. Cole Swensen, our final poet of the evening, is the author of 19 collections of poetry, a collection of critical essays called Noise That Stays Noise, and most recently, Art in Time, a collection of hybrid poetic or lyric essays on innovative landscape art. Her work has won the Iowa Poetry Prize, the San Francisco State Poetry Center Book Award, and the National Poetry Series, and has been finalist twice for the LA Times Book Award and once for the National Book Award. A translator of contemporary French poetry, prose, and art criticism, she has also won the PEN USA Award in Literary Translation, and she divides her time between the US and France. Welcome, Cole.
Sorry. No, you've got a big job there. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. And thanks for the organization. And thanks to Hazal, who's not here because she's touring the United States. So I'm going to read from a series of recent pieces. For some reason, at the start of COVID, my writing habit changed entirely. And I've been writing things that I unlike anything I've ever written before. They're absurdist pieces, which I think are kind of maybe a bit in response to the world. They're short and silly. So, sun versus sun. On particularly bright days, the panes of sunlight are shattered by the sun's rays. They get all broken up. It's pretty brittle stuff. And yet nothing is lost. You can reconstruct them like jigsaw puzzles, which is what meteorologists do when it rains. The doorknob. The doorknob is turning on its own. The dog watches it from across the room. She knows that the door will swing open and that nothing will enter. It happens every evening at about this time. And she knows that the people will come back a little later and accuse each other of having once again left the door open. And good God, the dog could have gotten out. But she hasn't. She's across the room, keeping her eye on the door, as she always is at this hour. Cherry tree in spring. The oddest things sing. I'm not talking about the tree, that's expected, but so much else. There it stands in the middle of a huge field, all in flower, and one of hundreds that flash by the train windows, which break into song at the sight of them. And of course, at a frequency beyond that of human perception, but a human can nonetheless just barely sense the charge between each tree and pane of glass as an infinitesimal electrical zap that, for the one looking out the window, manifests as a split second of hyper attention, which collapses the distance, and suddenly there you are under the blossoming tree, and then under the next one, and then the next, and so on, until you realize that, in fact, you're traveling by tree rather than by train. Crows. Nothing knows, and thus there is nothing known. And that's what their black is all about. Each bird an instance of redacted sky, followed by more sweeping deletions, marks of absolute doubt. This evening there are dozens, tiny blackouts in universal consciousness, collecting in the trees at the back of the house. They prefer the bare ones, in which they pose as black flowers on the almost black branches that look down on the tulip magnolia, which also flowers from bare limbs, though its flowers are still trying to figure out how to get free, like those volatile blossoms on the tree above. A pencil. It's where it wanders in its silver, its granular tracery. You're writing in mineral, which creates gravity, which means a gravitational field, and one so incredibly tiny that nothing visible falls into its orbit, though so many invisible things are irresistibly attracted. Exactitude, for example. It will follow a pencil for miles, which makes you wonder, particularly if you're a writer who always writes in pencil, how many miles you've written in your lifetime. And for artists whose principal medium is graphite, how many acres, and above all, for those working in landscape, do the acres created ever resemble the scenes that they've drawn? Or does it, in fact, work the other way around, with the acres drawing themselves through the hands of an artist who thinks she's simply imagining it all? Early milestones of abstract expressionism. It was the early 1940s, and a painter exploring new avenues in abstraction was experimenting with working right up close to the canvas, her nose only a couple of inches away. Completely absorbed in her work, she applied patches and streaks of color according to the rhythms of her body and the impulses of her mind. At the end of several hours, utterly exhausted, and with the canvas now completely covered, she dropped her brushes into turpentine and left the studio without looking back and noticing that, though utterly abstract, the work just happened to exactly resemble a line of giant oaks along the bank of a river with several swans on the water and a woman reading on the far shore. The Trick of the Tiny. And this is about a gorgeous painting that is not a small painting, but it's done with the detail of a miniature. Roger van der Weyden's Brock family triptych, 1452, in the Louvre, is only partly in the Louvre. Much of it actually occurs in some other country, only accessible through acute detail. And that's why the detail is there. As you lean in closer and closer, which you have to do to see it at all, your peripheral vision gets blocked out, isolating you, cutting you off from your herd, as it were, which allows the painting, like any predatory being, to take hold of you gently and pull you in inexorably. It's such a lovely world in which a white horse walks off down a curving road through green fields with a figure walking along behind. And as you lean in even closer to see who it is, you become her. Is there a window open that could be closed? I'm just wondering. Yeah. Okay. No, it happened. Back with the crows, with their intricate nose. There goes a clutch unknotting itself against a sky almost white. It's that time of evening. And I've never understood it. Why, at the end of the day, is the sky so much lighter in color when it's actually much less bright? The crows, and now it's a skein of them, still say no, and they're adamant about it, so I'm inclined to believe them. A word for it. There's a French expression, I think it's mouton du ciel, excuse me, mouton du ciel. I ran across it in a poem, or was it un troupeau de nuages? In any case, the clouds as sheep equation was firmly established, and I've run across it at least once more since. I'm thinking about it tonight because the small puffs of cloud trotting past are distinctly sheep-like in their shape and flock. And then my eye alights on the field directly across from my window, in which a real flock of real sheep employed by the state of California to eat up the dry grass and thus reduce the fire danger are munching away. To see the earth thus reflected in sky as if the latter was a reconstitution of the former. Though for that matter, the sheep in the sky are moving much faster. They seem, in fact, to be hightailing it out of here, which gives one pause for thought, though perhaps, in fact, one should not pause. And the next two, I spent a lot of COVID couple of years in California because I was teaching at a distance. And I spent a lot of that time hiking in these trails. It's a quasi-rural area just north of San Francisco. Deer bloom. There's a deer bloom in the oak grove, petal by petal, with each eye more open. They watch us pass with a hint of suspicion, but with a larger one of humor, which we can't quite come to admit is derision. Deer bloom among oaks, a kind of soft dawn, a refracted fawn radiating into day. It's the stillness that emanates from their watchful bodies, even when startled, leaping up, alarmed. There's yet something so orchid about them, something waxed in the calm of their aloft. I was walking up a trail last week and was interested to see so many times the emphatic imprint of a deer's hoof over and into the tracks of a mountain bike tire. Though most deer bloom only at night, it's the ambient sounds that are out at that hour that allow them to flower, innumerable and untraceable, that yet they enable them to open, to bloom even among their predators, and in fact to bloom right in their faces, coyotes, mountain lions, etc. Disguising yourself as a flower is an extremely effective protective mechanism because the predator is never prepared for the fact that you can and do simply get up and walk away. The iris migration. They come over the hills in mobs. At first, you glance off the trail to the left and are stunned by a field of them, thousands, when just last week you were here at the very same spot and there were only a few. But then your ear starts to catch a distant drumbeat. At first, it sounds like soft footfalls, perhaps tiny feet on moss or fallen leaves. But then as you listen more closely, it becomes clearly a multitude and then a stampede. All still soft, but that in its sheer numbers riotously sweeps before you in a blizzard of violet. Wild irises in herds, swarms, hordes, kicking up a fluttering siege as they make their way to the sea. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say wild irises marauding, for here they come careening, still by the thousands. You can hear them from acres, maybe even counties away. The hoof of an iris is so incredibly acute, so finely tuned, that the sound it makes is perfectly timed to every bit of territory it passes over. And so much so that, taken all together, they create an intricate, though audible only to the most discerning, orchestra of oohs and ahs, as irises are particularly susceptible to the beauty of the views that they encounter as they crest every new ridge. Owls. An owl is always early, striking some as eerie, when it's really just an airiness of hour, as if the darker it gets, the more air there is, which makes its body more buoyant, which lets its wings beat harder, and at each beat, they beat yet more air into the dark. And thus, the air in the hour continually grows until just before dawn, when it drops off sharply and settles as dew across lawns. Owls and edges. An owl is all about edges. You can see it any evening. It's all disheveling, grading by degrees, and as the darkness progresses, so do the edges, and each one is a wing. It may not belong to any given thing, but the owl tends to gather them, being the night gleaner, the gatekeeper, and therefore responsible for strays. Stray wings are a problem all over the world and a danger because if they all get together, which they seem likely to do, and soon, they'll cover the sky enough to block out the sun, and just imagine the harm that that will do. Though that's not their goal. That's not what they want at all. They just want to talk, to know how you are, to ask about your life, how it's going, and to exchange a few pleasantries, maybe about the weather, for instance. And then they'll sigh and agree that it's been pretty gloomy lately. Tree and tree. I was at a colleague's apartment for the first time recently and was sitting facing a white wall on which was painted a lovely pale gray image of the upper branches of a tree. An hour or so later, I noticed that the shadow cast on the same wall by a tree outside her window had a very similar form. And as I watched, it came closer and closer until it finally clicked, a perfect fit. You could almost hear it, but just for an instant, and then it moved on. When I mentioned it to her later, she exclaimed, "Ah, yes, it happens only once a year, and I forgot that it was today." And oddly enough, I have another friend who also has the shadow of a tree painted in faint gray on a white wall. It's the silhouette of a cherry tree in flower, but the tree outside the window, which casts its shadow on the wall every afternoon, is a parasol pine. And so the beauty in this case is based entirely on disparity. The owl is back. The owl is back with its little hoots, a bit like something soft and huddled, like a tiny sofa, backing up, ooh-ooing instead of beeping. And we picture her on her branch, stalking back and forth, the hooting, a form of chatting with sisters and friends, except that, no, owls are much more solitary than that. And so we begin to hear it as a form of singing that so deeply knows that single note that she can create an entire opera out of it. Components of a garden. Moon. Things grown in moonlight, metallic in sound. The moon sheds a wind, needle in kind. Any seed planted under a new moon will come up poisonous. Any planted under a full will walk on its own, will walk all night, casting a mineral light that will blind the moon. Sun. Unlike the moon, there is no new sun, and the man walking with a blazing torch will disappear at noon. Water. Who walked a lake, walking every small thing golden in its light, who walked on back behind the sun, walking over water, farther goes the going over, to calm, now morning, and all egret all around it, a pond. Birds. Birds are small things. They are berries in the branches, bending the branches, breaking the berries with their tendency toward bursting, staining, and instantly the stain of birdsong all over the otherwise pristine air, the air now beyond repair. And yet they continue to be small things, too small to be held accountable, and stealing or caught feasting on seedlings, so that at times the trees bloom only inside them. Night, dim silence in stamen, in pistol drawn blind. Night is a fall of footsteps, a rhythm in the leaves. The bells come back alive. Night counts by them, or by the branch that scrapes, or the pear that drops and never lands. Tools. The hand on its own grows a steel edge. The hand conforms, the bones wrap around. Some of the earliest tools were made of bone. The hand wraps around a year and makes it a stone, and the year rages on. The hand is man's only real tool, basking in the sun throughout a busy afternoon. The last one, gardeners. Think gardener of every, think gardener of signs. Let me hand you the hand of a man who gardens time. Birds, the gardeners of the sky. There's a person at the far end of the garden who seems not to be paying much attention to all of this, who seems to be leaning over and raking the dark earth with her hands, though in fact, it's not the earth and it's not so dark, but it is your heart. Thank you.
so much, Cole. We're going to finish our evening just with a very short recording from Fran Lock, but as you'll appreciate, it takes us a minute or two to set it up. So while we're waiting, perhaps we could just have one more round of applause for all of our readers tonight. So. Anyone have any announcements they want to make?
May or may not. Pamenar Massive, you may or may not be ready to know that I can't join you in person this evening. So I am recording this video from scenic my mum's house in the flat Cambridgeshire, Finland. Hooray! This is more hygienic spleen from my forthcoming collection with Pamenar. If you thought the last one was a bit much, then woo boy. Walking. Which I mean is feeling about.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's just the internet connection. Yeah, it says on Teams.
Is my phone over there?
This is yours now. I don't know why the sound goes like that. Pamenar Massive, you may or may not be ready to know that I can't join you in person this evening. So I am recording this video from scenic my mum's house in the flat Cambridgeshire, Finland. Hooray! This is more hygienic spleen from my forthcoming collection with Pamenar. And if you thought the last one was a bit much, then woo boy. This poem is called The Human Suit Goes Walking. By which I mean this feeling device, software, the capable whole, this suffering jacket, her gaunt booty, canted, a rosy machine. The hot normal is a hose arbor, the vacuum that nature abhors is livid fish eye, stink eye, spit roast, night shift, night shaft, the perforated cherry, supply, fingered. Disaster glues the gilded wet of her in place, the world unbraiding its fait accompli, one intestine at a time, funny hair, a pillow slip filling with wet feathers, a line of pastel sparrows sewn together, rose decals in hygienic motels. The world grows a girl on it like mold, 10 eyes oinking, men coquetting their hard-on through a hole in a sheet, through a slit in the wall, men with scented bayonets, the pig part of sticking, the human suit to be hospitable, dismantled, run, see how many glowing shanks on the pyre, once her lulled on a gurney, once a chaser of tar to seal the speaking wound in her back, in her life, in her flame retardant nightie, in her temple, garments, look, sucking the sauce from the spare rib she is whittled from, disgusted, the ash her pale aniseed. He has finally reached the limits of the edible. You are the human suit. You are the human suit. People tell you to fuck off back to improbable places. The Soviet Union, your grandmother's cunt. It is Wednesday. The dog is making a wish on your crotch. If he says what it is, then it won't come true. Thoughts enter your airspace like hard doves, like red balloons. There's not enough poem to fill up a single mouth with its suckling, posy man. The heart is some kind of prosthetic rodent, no mistake. You are neither ladylike nor likely lady. How the world might end with a red, slitting glow. Our labours gashed, we stagger away from ourselves like a blown soldier. There's no such thing as politely on fire. Don't forget, you are the human suit. They look to you for a doom they come by honestly. See the mouth, say this whole story of its disappointments. In the workshop, we play tombo to ourselves on the fucking ukulele. Our Lady of Extinct Birds, spread your bird mind over us. A fluky shit in the eye for luck is all we know of fortune. Stop moping. You are the human suit. Your home is a grave too spit upon to hold you. An apprentice to stains, you sweat your futures through the silk gusset of yourself. If, and if it's big if, you are happy and you know it, then give up the least of your witchcraft. Bless the sunborn body alive with its own trammelled calmer. Breathe, feel old, enter the world. Sleep intends a better dream. No more dank wafts between terrors. You are a person, a bag of probable skin, and you do what you do, what you do, what you do. Burdened virtue. It starts with a wee quote. It's funny about passing. We disapprove of it and at the same time condone it. It excites our contempt, and yet we rather admire it. We shy away from it with an odd kind of revulsion, but we protect it. Nella Larsen, Passing, 1929. This dress is a tale told by an Egypt. Remake yourself from the sludge of redundant virtue. Be a flung spell, ye hex nurse. Climb on the red never bus to the Midland cities our people crack up in. Chew the dark ward of your waking manhood, girlhood, doghood, hoodhood. Amadan Dom is both trickster and fool. Change into the dress. You are the dress. The dress is an exodus. The dress is a multitude. You live here now, and what kind of crazy are you, he says, or the kind born to fire, to a bright blood tangling. And you say an animal, you plight your hyenas. Diaspora is both process and condition. The dress is both process and condition. This uniform of perfumed hands is cut from your sorriest kin. Will get up and walk is descending the stairs by itself. Grave drapes exalting their Midas drag. Your dress is a slow wound. A dress can be a body. A dress can be a feast of jeans. Oh, it's a horned dress, decaying and assailed, assigned to you. A mouth full of flicky thoughts like flies in this dress. You are passing. Smile. You are stranger than a doctor's no. Present your disinfected ancestors to camera, your abbreviated family, your sexed tombola of cherries. This is you now. Side character in another woman's atlas. Habit is your only comfort. This is what the dress means. Tailor's seconds. Trimmings are both ornaments and discards. You are both ornament and discard. Without the dress, just know your place. Gagged by a formal husband, fade through these towns, their metaphors skull rot. The neighbours are big girls, appropriate adults. They want to cut the dress from you. As you walk down the street, you spout pink triangles, black triangles, red asocial triangles, heretical designs. A pain that flattens even weekend daylight, always sneaking in. The ponytails talk. They find you out like red pens circling a birthday, say, see that woman who married the Berlin Wall. See that woman who married the Eiffel Tower. See that woman turned on by the supplicant tilt of a weather vane. That's you. That is the woman who married a dress. They cost lots for your comfort, you poor broken reed. You are welcome. Most welcome. They turn you into carnival, these pale midwives of parade, all chiffoned under a leech moon, and you are zeroed in their spotlight, glossy in the memory of delighted magazines. They speak your dress to gauze and golden slippers, to a smug look on a model's face. They are coming for you with their knives and forks, peeling the dress, tasting the rainbow. Queer is both an orientation and a community. The dress is both the gospel of an angel's failing and the dirt inside a cult. Yeah, afraid they're basically all like this. This is the last one. It's a long one. And this call, if you can ever find it, behold. Behold, I send you out like wolves amidst the sheep. Have a lot of feels. How the day is a sucked fume, the danger of death, a single dim emergency. There's a blunt knife cutting the dark nipple of addiction, your poor negated brain and boxes. Your self-recital leaks from you as silver mucus travels in the snail's wake. Durational ooze these hours, the climate's rotten aspect frames this thought. You were copying his red, lacerable buds. He was quivering, quiverful aftertaste and towny in your sodden mouth. Come is a kind of platitude. The sun will come out tomorrow. So here you are, a malediction building in the bow. Here's your human sea pioneer, and what are you going to do with it? Flicking the ash from your fury, breathe. These towns, a budget of waxy livers, sherry with everything, dressing for breakfast. You are dressed in black like a tolerable crow. You are lukewarm, wafting the waste of your substance, punctured and lustring. Say a warning augury over again. Fill up the mouth with his fake pharmaceutical summons. Once mad has been bird-lined onto you, you will never be anything else. Don't cry. A reckoning pours through your meek, expendable pout. Those women are wearing their young, irreversible mohawk, a crown of fur. The only thing that grows on you is rust, its worst, empire spreading. They said, oh, you pallid catkin, you disinterested shrub, parcel of silkening fidgets, a forced worm, a gasped harm. They compared you to a summer's day, a sour heat that dries their spots. What will you do with it? Psalms for your muted and soaring clit, no face charade, the odour of screwing. Hyena, you are barely passing. They want the overrated dog, the hoary merch of a Disney animal, a pink tongue gliding up and down the seam of a rubber bone. Here is a man. His culture catches flies. His open fly catches culture. He's a prophet in a doomsday cult of himself. He says, here's a king, here's a mutt, here's a looming mongrel, predictable bitch. He means you. You watch a pale widget of a maggot wagging in a hole and you know yourself a pre-dead. Why bother with inside your skin at all? This is all they have to offer, the chemsex of a clumsy taboo. Live in your body, this flatulent and melancholy cunt they keep addressing as you. How the day is a kind of bovine zombie, is slow trained to Kreutzfeldt ridiculum. They want you exquisitely rendered or belching your bolus of grass, yes. They want you mouthing your methane, going, fuck me, harder, harder. Oh, ideal home show, wedding fair, oh, doggy daycare, baby shower, oh, shower, baby shower of bastards. The cows are gouching in their stalls as you run up and down like a fire in a maternity unit, screaming, I do not care about your fucking kids. Stop showing me pictures of your fucking kids. You're queer. Is a circular miracle, a wire in the enzyme. You give birth only to yourself. These Dharma mamas blissed out on pink flesh pellets of baby, baby, baby. They say, what kind of animal are you? You're neither milk nor meat. Where is your plausible orifice to inseminate or slaughter? Why don't you die? The abattoir excuses you as a knock-knock joke with your name on it. And glossy hammer to the glands, your sacks of depressive musk. Don't cry, hyena. There's a war flowing through the stupid corridors to meet they call a girl. Girls give evidence in camera against themselves, their bodies a mean legal seclusion. Men want you stupendous, that is, stupid and pendulous and ruined. They want to cheaply reproduce your skin, dress another animal up in it. They want Anna Nicole Smith's face on a fucking stamp. They want sob stories, post-porn dowagers in stately hypochondria with eyes mascaraed umlaut singing the battle hymn of their own destruction. Agency, agency, la la la, I like to dab his hands on me. I chose my doom in vapid palindromes, little games, the little me. Do me in an English accent like a landed sadist, la la la, etc. You are something sensual and ugly. You come away from yourself in white strings, like a shredded gut, like a peeled snake. This is the world and don't believe the hype. Booze hasn't even a smell of its own. It eggs on other odors, piss garlic, stale menthol, sluggish perfume. Don't do it. It ends with a section of your spine under glass, ends with your eyes the same ghetto russet as your teeth, your hair. It ends without pasture, a moist and desolate day, blank flocks of the internet, the only ones to mourn you. All your fails forlornly offered and imitated and waltz time to death. The human suit is saleable. Harangued, macerated, pain as a herb worked into the skin. All those endangered stilettoing toward Bethlehem. What is poem ever but your dulcet redress? Is flagellant by candlelight? God damn, their poem is the man bun, the man rose, does the culpable shit of a girl boss t-shirt. This is what a feminist looks like. T-shirt, a hiding in plain sight t-shirt, a sensitive date rapist t-shirt. Men, boys, and boy men whose only cops is trope. We know woe must be wrung from the loins of ill effect. Woe is a hardcore, a wastrel discharge. How will hyena resist this thing? The meat raffle of the mind and the animal unfolding, the animal as event horizon. The sky will not stay, dyed by fire. The sky will not stay, and neither will you. Our queer grief is dreamed from us. What you must make is language. There's a future for all us raw whelpings, women whose smiles are scare tactics, streets are mustard mutton, walks and wrong a million ways. Can you almost see yourself fleshed out? Outfleshing the others unmade, I mean unmasked, how it is to be both useless and used. Nerds and their niceties, incels, the fucking musical, a prayer that no polite amen can close. As in to be more than a bouquet of relevant deaths. They celebrate brave women so they don't have to change the shite that makes brave necessary. Such a fighter she is, a survivor, a warrior. Hyena, be a soldier of fortune. Sorrow thoughts and a small font can't meme a girl when dead. Had the days a man extending himself in your presence who wants to outgrow even your shadow. He says your grace to treadworm, teepworm, whipworm, pinworm, hookworm, worm, canker and parm. Hyena, his poem laid its eggs in your poem, and as sterile as the blue barbicide he'll drown you in, he says. Be a clement mammal. Be the spit that seals their gentleman's agreement. Be the collective noun for yourself. There is no one else. Be pig plus. To them, that is all an animal is. I know you are gentle. Corny as jackal and all the mongrels of the Middle Kingdom are your chosen people. Hyena, don't cry. You are really happening. Make their prim wow for breakfast and shit their approval. Rise to where radiance withers the roofs. Through a gold tear pass to the other side of girl. Cheers, that's quite enough of that. Thanks.
Okay, so I have to announce there's going to be another book launch on the 27th of October from Pamenar, and it's going to be James Davies, Biswamit Dwebedi, Susan Geberts, Tracy Grinnell, Amanda Monti, and Elena Rivera here, 7 o'clock on the 27th of October. So that's it. Thanks very much for coming. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
To just let people know about our on Saturday called Hard Work, which is a music poetry performance night that's happening at Serena Breda and Oishi. Sorry, you just got the last word of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay, thanks.
You can just, by the way, go there together.
Upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay. Snacks and drinks upstairs if people want to go up there. Yeah, I think that's what it's People look excited up front.